How would you define the New Left?
Well, the New Left was originally sort of an outgrowth of the civil rights movement, uh, and then it became empowered and steered by the demonstrations against the Vietnam War. And you could certainly say that that as a practical matter, those of us who joined Students for Democratic Society, SDS, as it was known, started by Tom Hayden and others, and Ivy Hoffman and Jerry Rubin were part of that movement. We didn't want to get drafted, So the harsh and embarrassing reality is that we were all in danger of getting drafted into that war that required, 500,000 people, 500,000 soldiers at any one time. And of course, there was a lot of turnover, so they had to draft a lot of people. And we didn't want to get drafted. And so to some degree, we were operating out of self-interest. I still think, of course, the war in Indochina generally against Vietnam and Laos, Cambodia, was a major crime against humanity. But we had a lot then to specifically object to. So when I went to Chicago in 1968 to demonstrate against the Democratic Convention, many of us were favoring Eugene McCarthy, who said he would end the war, and then Hubert Humphrey, who had been LBJ's vice president, Lyndon Johnson's vice president, who symbolized basically furthering the war, did get nominated. So we had a war, an ugly war, to object to. I emphasize that because when you ask me what was the New Left all about, then I would have to say substantively we weren't about very much. In other words, what did we really want to change? What kind of society did we want? Did we really want a socialist society in line with what we saw in the Soviet Union or in Red China? There were people, I wasn't one of them, who were infatuated with Mao Zedong of Red China, who was later exposed to be obviously a mass murderer. There were people who thought of Ho Chi Minh, who was head of North Vietnam, as a great guy. I wasn't one of those. I just felt that the war was a major crime in any case. But apart from that, then those of us who were not enamored of any of these examples, we had just this vague idea that communal living was the whole idea, that we didn't want to work for corporations, we didn't want to work in business, we just wanted to form communes and pretty much make our own yogurt and grow our own food and raise our own animals. And in fact, that's what I did for a while. I went to the country and lived on a kind of commie that was more or less breaking up. And I found it to be an extremely hectic life. People had jobs during the day, but their houses were always breaking down. Their cars were always breaking down. They were raising their animals, growing their vegetables, and keeping that. And so I thought the pace of life was way too much. Communal living was not for me and not for most other people. So we gave up on that. I guess that's the sort of the long-winded answer to what the New Left was all about. But then when when Nixon ended the draft in the early 1970s, then resistance to the war faded. Then the fear of getting drafted faded. And then the New Left, the thumbnail description of what happened is, of course, then it splintered into the weather people who were blowing up buildings, crazy people who decided they'd go to a payphone at night. They'd call up security at the building and say, "Everybody, please get out because the building is about to blow up in 10 minutes." Nobody ever thought, and even to this day, they don't ever thought, you go to a payphone. What if the call doesn't get through? The building's going to blow up and people are going to get killed. So that's what these crazy weather people were doing. They were just resorting to violence, and that was part of the the death throes of the New Left.